Oh, good day. Well, welcome back to the GCM Scale Garage. Today we're bringing you another great rig review here. And in the Scale Garage, of course, the only rigs you're going to see in here are the ones that are ready for pictures and videos. And, of course, this fine specimen qualifies. We've got a great amount of detail on this great Tamiya kit here. And this kit is owned by Dana, and so we brought him in to show it off and talk about all the great scale stuff that he's got on this rig and what's going on here. So first off, Dana, thanks for bringing this in, and tell us what have we got here? What are we looking at?
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. You know, this is believe it or not, a real 80s vintage Wild One Tamiya kit.
I'm not sure I want to touch it anymore.
It's funny you would say that. You would wonder why someone would get to this point with a vintage kit.
Yeah, well, in this case, it looks like, has this been run since the 80s?
I run it, well, as you know, we run it every summer. We have a lot of fun with it, and, you know, you'd think it would be on a shelf, but a funny story how we got to that point and why this one exists as it is.
How could you take a vintage Tamiya kit like this and make it a runner for every summer?
Well, first of all, I love it. I love the sort of the vintage look and feel. Again, you know, it's got kind of got a rat rod, sort of Mad Max kind of concept going on. But what I wanted to do here is I always wanted a Wild One. You know, that vintage Wild One car I always wanted, and so, you know, sourcing them, unfortunately or fortunately, your best bet is eBay. So I managed to get two kits. Okay. And sort of used all of the parts that were decent for a fully restored, highly detailed box art Wild One. Oh. And then I had all these parts lying around that were sort of the rejects, and I thought, well, you know, let's create something with it. And so this is basically what we've created is sort of one that you can, you know, classified vintage, yet you can bash with it and have some fun.
So this is all vintage Tamiya stuff, but it's actually the leftovers from a real vintage restoration.
Correct. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Wow. So in this case, you're not worried about having any damage on these parts from running and having some kind of obstacle collision or something, because you've still got a good vintage one packed away.
That's right. Yeah, you know, you can still have your shelf queen.
Yeah.
And yet, you know, be able to go out and to the park or wherever you go out and have some fun, you know, bashing around with a real vintage kit. And you know, the look and the feel has kind of got that sort of roughed up, you know, farm, Mad Max, you know, as I'm saying. So it's, you know, you can really have some fun.
So if we were to dig into this thing, what kind of powertrain are we looking at?
Well, it's not stock. The powertrain I borrowed from a low-C scale buggy, or the short course buggy, sorry.
Yeah, because I don't see the resistor pack in the back here or any of that vintage stuff.
Yeah, I've got all sort of modern drivetrain, LiPo battery, you know, all the low-C latest, greatest I put into this, and it runs and rips like nobody's business.
Yeah, I bet it does. I can see you're definitely getting some more than vintage tire wear on the back here too.
Yeah, and so, you know, if you see, you know, I've got sort of, this one is the vintage rim and tire, and yet, you know, through bashing and so on, it cracked. So I found one that was a replacement, and you know, if you look at it, doesn't match, but you know, you don't need it to match. It's still functional, right. and you're having fun. And then, you know, I'm drilling holes in the vintage, you know, sort of Lexan body, putting in lights, and it's got a red light in the back and you know, a light out front. So yeah, lots of fun.
Well, that's great.
Thanks.
Wow. So you say you run this thing every summer. What kind of work are you doing with it? Are you using it mostly for some old sort of scale videos, or what kind of what do you run it in, some kind of a vintage racing class?
Well, you know, we try to get a few vintage cars together and, you know, sort of, you know, have fun and get into some racing. And, you know, I've raced it with the Sand Scorcher, you know, the Bug that, you know, we've reviewed before. So, you know, you sort of sit there and, you know, put a couple cars together and go racing.
Wow, that's exciting. So, and I remember last year we actually had this buggy and the other Tamiya review out at the River Ridge for an old-fashioned sort of an off-road challenge. And you'll find a link for that down in the video just below here. But this definitely is a good-looking kit, and I'm still a little surprised to think that we've got a whole bunch of vintage Tamiya here rolling around on the dirt, looking for action. To me, I don't know, I'm still a little scared of that.
Yeah.
What a great-looking buggy.
Thank you. Yeah, we're still having fun, and it still drives like like it was 1980, but that's okay. It's again, we're just having so much enjoyment with all these rigs, and this is why we bring them to you. We like to do these rig reviews so that you guys can sort of see this stuff and know it still exists, and we're having fun.
Well, and it's a good idea to be able to just drop into modern electronics and get the electronic speed control and a 2.4 gig radio system in there, and just get rid of some of that vintage Tamiya problem that comes with those old electronics as well.
That's a great point. It really makes these vintage buggies very capable.
Yeah.
When you put in that sort of gear, it brings life to them. It really does.
I remember my buggies back in the 80s when they weren't vintage. This was like in the 80s. You buy a new Tamiya kit, and you spend all this time getting it together, and then you put in your 1500 milliamp battery, and you get your 5 minutes of awesome fun.
Yeah.
And then you've got so much problems with the wiper now, that because you've got the wipers full of sand and the electronics, and so all that vintage stuff now it's out the door, and I guess the fun factor's way up. That's really exciting. What a great idea.
Well, thanks. We've had a lot of fun.
And I see you've definitely scaled him up a little bit. I mean, you've got this guy who's got a new helmet on there, and he's all painted up. And is that the original driver pan in there too?
Yeah, original driver pan, original helmet, so on and so forth. And of course, yeah, as you were just noticing and pointing out, I kind of went a little crazy on the helmet.
Looks good.
Yeah, I like it.
Wow. So it's true that you actually can have a good time with a vintage Tamiya buggy.
It certainly is.
Well, that's good news, because sometimes somebody watching this video may have a huge bag of Tamiya spares and just can't wait to do something with it, and here's some inspiration. So thanks so much for bringing that along.
Well, thank you.
Good. Well, there's another great rig review at the GCM Scale Garage, and we thank Dana for bringing this in and showing us off all you can do with old vintage Tamiya parts and still have a great time. So thanks again.